of the day. Not a simple day. Even if you don't know the people, so you don't feel it the same way. But being with people who are obviously sad has to have an effect upon all of us, and we'll see. Sometimes people tell you you're living in a bubble. If you are, bubbles are very nice. Right? If you remember when you were 3 years old and 4 years old, they still had the stuff, you blow the bubbles, still have the stuff, whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about? You put the thing in and go, right? I haven't had one for a long time, but it sounds nice. Don't think that outside is the real world. It's another part of the world. But just because things are the way they are, that doesn't mean that we necessarily have to agree with them. It doesn't mean that we have to resign ourselves to the facts that are there. Doesn't mean that we have to accept it, because what else can you do? And therefore, what I've been asked to talk about today for the next 55 minutes or so is I gave it a title, Seeing is Not Believing. What the title is not so important. But it does mean just because you see things that are there, it can remain outside of you, external to you, not part of you. Because when I believe something, I take that belief and I make it part of me. So therefore, what we're talking about today is seeing things in the world, seeing things that many of you have seen already, but most of you have never been in the real world. Sometimes when somebody talks to me about coming to Israel, usually staying Shana Bet, and they say that they think, or their parents think, they should see the real world because they've been in Manhattan or SK or Bruya for the last 12, 14, 15 years in Machal, right? As if they've seen the real world. If you want to see the real world, go rent an apartment in Harlem, okay? And that's the real world. See what it's really like. Because reality doesn't mean that I have to accept that reality. So that's what we're going to try to talk about today. And this, it works. Because what you see and vision as reality is called by Chazal Olam Tapuchot, a topsy-turvy, upside-down world. In fact, if you read the Tochacha, not in this week's Parsha B'Chilkosai, and not in the Parshas Kisavo, the Tochacha there, but the Tochacha that's embedded within Parshas Ha'azinu, Dor Tapuchos Hemo. Sometimes a generation is turned upside down, because Chazal expressed it in the following way. Gemara Maseches Shabbos, Daf Nun. Rav Yosef bereid Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi chalash ve'itnaged. He became ill, sick, maybe he died, semi-died. Exactly what happened isn't so important. But he went up to heaven, more or less. Ki hadar, when he returned, Amar le Avuha, his father Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, said to his son, My chazis, so what was it like up there? What did you see? Right? In terms of when you really get to Olam Haba, you only see things that nobody knows about. Ayin lo ra'asa Elokim zelasecha, only God knows what's there. So it wasn't really that he was there. So exactly what happened, I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. But this is what he said, Amar Lei. He said, Abba, Olam hafuch ra'isi. Wow, it was all strange, right? I was dizzy, I was upside down. Ayonim lamato, those people were great people that we see them being on top. They were lamato. V'tachtonim. And the people that we see as lowly people, unimportant, that people don't pay attention to them, lamala, they're on top. Wow. So I was dizzy, I was under the spell of, who knows, drugs, whatever it was. Drunk. Obviously, it's ridiculous what I saw. It's irrelevant what I saw. Amar lo b'ni, said my son, Olam Borah Ra'isa. You saw a clear world. What you saw was clarity. Because sometimes what we see in the existence in which we live, existence in which the Amoroyim, Kedoshim lived, is the same problem. Sadna da'arachadhu. The lay of the land is the same. History repeats itself. Shalavicha v'yagedcha zekenecha v'yomru. Ask those who came before you, they'll tell you the same types of things. The names change, the different types of challenges change. But all in all, there is a certain human condition, which why we were put on this earth, which is our tafkid, to see things with clarity. And Rav Yosef, Bereit Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Rav Yosef, heavy duty stuff. Until his father tried to clarify it for him, he didn't know that what he was seeing there was the way things are supposed to be, not the way that we perceive things in this world. And therefore, even though not everything is olam tapuchot, even though not everything is topsy-turvy and upside down, sometimes everything melds together, comes together, and we look at all of it as being one big truth. That's existence, what things are, and we pattern ourselves, we take that as our standards, and we follow those standards. And so now we're going to try to describe how I search for this olam barur, not till I have to wait till 120, but that my perceptions can have some clarity. Olam barur, berur, you learn Hilchos Borer, to clarify, to separate the psolet from the ochel, to have clarity in what you see, to know. And no one in this room, whether you're sitting down or you're standing up, can escape from the pressures of the times and the places that we are living. Some of us are learning, we learned Alei Shur Chelik Beis. A person is affected by where they live and by when they live. It's there. It's not escapable. It's not a weakness that it's there. It's a fact of life that it's there. My job is to seek clarification. And how do I seek clarification? It says, Echovos Alvavos, Shar Cheshbon HaNefesh, Per Gimel HaCheshbon HaArba'a Ve'esrim. Number 25. If you've learned Chovos Alvavos, you know it's terribly challenging because every idea there has 10 parts and 15 parts and 24 parts. Says the Chovos Alvavos, a Rishon, from the time of Rashi, earlier than the Chovos Alvavos, the Rabbeinu Bachya, the Ilun and Chumash. Says the Chovos in Shar Cheshbon HaNefesh, how do I make an accounting to myself? One of the ways that I make an accounting to myself is the Tidbana al Kol Inyan. Seek to understand every matter. Shenit Yashev Etzla Minyana Yidat Elokim V'Torato. That things should be settled for you in terms of knowing God and His Torah. V'Divrei HaRishonim. Rishonim means not what we call Rishonim. He was a Rishon. Right? From the people before him and the Gonim and Chazal. The Chidot HaChachamim and the things that Chazal teach us in riddles, particularly maybe they mean Agadot, that aren't understood by just translating them, understanding them, not like a Devar Halacha, where the Pshat is the Pshat. Whereas by Divrei Agada, the translation is just merely the invitation to think about what you're reading. Vinyanei HaTfilot, to understand them. Shenit Yashev, let's go back to the top line. Shenit Yashev Etzla, it's settled by you. Things fit in that make sense. Asher Yodata Meit Narutecha, the things that you know since you're a child. You've been brought up in all sorts of things. Baruch Hashem. I would imagine almost all the people here, okay, went to day school for elementary school, went to some nice high schools, going to a wonderful Machal. Hopefully continuing what they're doing in the proper way. So I have all sorts of things which came to me as a child, that are wrote by me, the things that I know what to do. All sorts of things that came that way. Slicha. לא, מצוין. כן, רק שאני קיביתי. כן, תודה רבה. מצוין, תודה. לא כאן. So I have all pieces of knowledge. But what's the knowledge that I have as a child? It's just global knowledge. I do things by rote. But I have to change as I mature and I grow up. Kitsurata inyanim hadakim, things that are nuanced, things that are delicate, things that have small points to them. And if your awareness, your knowledge itself is weak, it's not the same thing as somebody who can think well. Halacha, Torah, Hashkafa, it's not just general principles, it's particular principles. It's nuanced. There's delicate differences between the two. Sometimes the difference between Asr and Mutter is whether you take the piece from the carrots or the carrots from the piece, since you learned Hilchos Borer. And one is Shmira Shabbos, and one's Korban Chatos, Kores, Skila B'Mezid. Don't be satisfied with lack of knowledge, says the Chovas Halvavos. V'chol asher tosif hakarat adam, and the more that you add to your understanding, Yosif berur b'inyanim, you'll have clarity. The more you know, that things will be clear, and you can distinguish right from wrong. Not just global issues, not just general issues, not just general principles, but the very specifics and the very teachings of the Torah. Hafach ba, v'hafach ba, dekula ba. Because everything's in Torah. We're just not at the madrega to understand such things. But it's all there. So even though I won't gain an understanding of kula ba, because we're not in such a madrega, I can certainly be in a better place than I am. I can't be satisfied with my knowledge and the way that I understood things and the way that I daven when I was 17 years old and daven when I'm 18 years old, or much older than 18 years old. Al kain al tanuach daita. Don't go to sleep. Don't give yourself rest. That which you understood when you began learning in an immature way or a less knowledgeable way. Immature way when you're 7 years old. A less knowledgeable way hopefully today is your less knowledgeable way, because later on you'll know more than you do today. When your intellect starts forming as you get a little bit older, as parents, I'll tell you this, and those of you who will be teachers, I'll tell you this. Okay? We know that there's ages of development. We know that there is concrete thinking, and we know that children start becoming 11, 12, 13, 14, then abstract thinking about ideas and principles and concepts, that becomes the opportunity for people to do so. And therefore, when I teach Mishnayos, I learned Mishnayos with a couple of my grandchildren who are 10 years old. Seder, we learn Pshat, read things. You learn with somebody who's 14, 15, 16, 17, you're not satisfied just with Pshat. You want to have an understanding how the Torah works, how the halacha works, not just to know things by rote. You want to understand what it means. When your seichel starts developing, in the ages that I said, study Piaget to figure out when that is. Layein b'sefer Torah Elokim. Look inside with insight. Layein isn't the same thing as Lomod. Take an eye and look insightfully. V'sifrei Nevi'av, Kamish lo lamad mimod, and start from fresh. One of the great Rosh Hashivas that one of my children learned from for many years. Okay, Adam Gadol Ma'od. It's very clear. He never keeps his notes from previous year on the same Masechta when he teaches another Masechta. He starts fresh, learning it each time as if he's learning it new. Asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alav avecha. To see the freshness and the news of Torah, and don't only rely on what you've learned before. And says someone, 800 years later, the Maram Shik was one of the Gedolei Ungaria in the 1800s. He was the forebearer of Munkacher Hasidim and Satmir Hasidim and other things that some of you might think are extreme. Adam Gadol Ma'od. And he wrote a number of essays on Pirkei Avos, remarkable essays. It's hard to find the sefer. I happened to find it one day, mamish by chance, and I didn't know what a gold mine I was finding. I just picked it up, and then I saw that there's wonderful essays. And here he puts the essay on Perek of Pirkei Avos that talks about the different ages. Ben Arba'im Lebina. When you become 40, or between 30 and 40, when you get older, then your understanding might be better. It could be that for ladies that there's Bina Yisera that maybe you get to start earlier. All right? So then you're ahead of me. But if Ben Arbim Labina, How does that fit in with what we just learned in the Chovas Halvavos, that when your seichel develops, I told you Piaget in 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, but Chazal had a Masorah that there's a different level of understanding. There's a different level of learning when you get to much more mature age. And so the Maram Shik presents us with a dilemma. Listen to his dilemma. And this, you see, there's lots of three dots here. That means I've taken away a lot. Oh, find the Sefer, learn it. Herat HaTorah ve'erat HaSeichel. Torah can give me information, can enter my mind, and Seichel can enter my mind. L'chol echad ma'ala. Each one has its advantage. And of course, we don't know what he's talking about yet. We're going to learn. Shim somchim al he'erat HaSeichel. If I'm going to say, once I really can understand things deeply, I reach maturity of thought, so I can understand things in their besides what it says, in their philosophical, their hashkafa ideas, I can understand their ramifications. I'm going to let that build me when I'm 40 years old. What do you do up until the age of 40? It's true you don't think so well. Or what do you do to the age of 13? You don't think so well. You don't know anything. All of a sudden I say, here, this is a Chumash, and this is God, and this is Torah. I have to learn Torah from an early age. It has to inspire me. It has to enter me to give me this understanding, this awakening. It's hard to translate the word ha'ara, but all those translations are accurate and apt. Because I have to start off learning things, even if I don't have a deep understanding. How do I go all my life without learning Torah? If we won't say the what if. But and this is why I want to read this to you. The second part. If all we had was Torah, and not learning things on my own, says the Maharam Shik, and he's bringing here things from the Chovas Halvavos. You can go off the derech real easily. Says the Maram Shik, 160, 170 years old. It's easy to go off the derech if all you know is what people fed you about Torah. It's not that you go off the derech, you'll stay there. Chas v'shalom, you won't become non-frum. But it'll be a burden. You won't enjoy it. You'll do it, but you won't have simchas hamitzvah. You'll keep Shabbos, but you'll resent it. It's a Shabbos, a long day in the summer. You'll look at your watch and wonder, when is it going to be over? And you'll look at your watch and say, I want the candy bar. When are the 6 hours going to be finished? And you're going to go through, even when you're 50 years old, go through the page in the Machzor and Yom Kippur and say, how long is it till it's over? Because it's not an opportunity. It's a burden. It's something you don't want. Because you don't understand why you're there. Again, v'gam lo haya samech kol kach la'avodas Hashem k'mo shemesamech atzmo im mevin b'sichlo. Because when you understand things, there's two milas. One mila is you're less likely to go off the derech. There's bechir chavshis. Chir chavshis al tamin ba'atzmecha ad yom moscha. Never be satisfied with yourself and say, I made it. Because until people can look back at you when it's over, we don't know if you'll make it or not make it. I know you'll make it, but I have to say that to myself. I don't know if I'll make it. Shaya Yochanan Kohen Gadol Meshamish Pekuna Gdola Shmonim Shana. There was a Kohen Gadol by the name of Yochanan, who was a Kohen Gadol for 8 years. He must have become a Kohen Gadol Mamish at Bar Mitzvah. And he had a long life and an active life. He was able to be the Kohen Gadol with all the duties that were put upon him as a Kohen Gadol, and he didn't have to retire because he was too weak. V'afach liot Tzeduki, became an apikoros at the age of 100. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. If you don't understand, if all you have things are by rote, then your connection with Torah is not a personal connection. It's a connection via somebody else. You have a connector. But God doesn't want you only to have a connector. God wants to speak to you directly. When you're a child, Hashem doesn't speak to you directly. So Choshem HaShabbos HaKadsho, Ata uvincha uvitecha. Who's bincha and who's bitecha and who's the ata in the pasuk? Bincha uvitecha are your children under the age of mitzvos. Ata is you when you're bar or bas mitzvah. When you reach the age of mitzvos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to you directly. And even though maybe nobody told you this, but mark it down that in another 13, 14, 15 years, depending on who you are, when it comes time to have the simcha of your child become the age of mitzvos, the time Mashki have them stand up to be Makabal ol Malchus Shemayim. And to say Shema Yisrael. Atah! Kadosh Baruch Hu talks to you. Without the connector, I still need the connector. I need Moshe Rabbeinu. And I need Fukei, and I know who I am. I have all sorts of people. But God's still talking to me. Because when you do so, you're mesamech atzmo imevim besichlo. Shenodome hasimcha sheish adomi mekayim davar shumevin mim osa davar sheino mevin. Simcha comes about from understanding that gives my connection to the Ribono Shalom. So the first part that we're emphasizing here, and it will be the last part that we'll emphasize in another 35 minutes or so, is that the starting point for all these issues that we're going to talk about soon is you and me. We're the starting point. We're the subject. The subject is not what's out there. The subject is you and me. And how I deal with it to recognize that which is good, and that which is appropriate, and that which is fine to adopt, and to support, and to internalize, and that which I have to keep away a little bit harsher, or build a mechitza shel barzel, an iron wall to keep it separate from me. It's me who's the subject, not what's outside, not the stuff that we don't like, not the stuff that we reject. I'm the subject. And we just saw in the Chavos Havavos, we just saw in the Maram Shik, and hopefully you're seeing this year in Michlala, that the more that you have knowledge, I understand what I'm doing. I still might feel at certain times that Shabbos is a long Shabbos, but I know I am here. I might get tired sometimes during davening and Yom Kippur, but I know that I'm here. I understand what it's about. And as you get older, ladies, I promise you'll stop turning the pages so much. Maybe you still do. Probably I turned the pages when I was your age too. And I probably looked at my watch in the summer as well. Then you'll come to the time you look at your watch, it's time to go to shul. Time to learn. Time to have shalosh shudas. Oh, you have more time to sing Zemiros. Big difference. And you're the subject. It's not just to say empty emunah. Of course, there comes places that we don't understand and we don't know. At that point, I have Harat Torah in the language of the Maram Shik. Then the Torah is there. Naseh v'nishma. But it's not just Naseh. It's Naseh v'nishma. What does nishma mean? It doesn't just mean we're going to hear with our ears. It means that we're going to understand as best as we can. Okay? So then when we go back to the nishma and to the Naseh will have a different level of meaning. And therefore I have to set goals for myself. Okay? And we'll talk about some of these in more, these are general goals, and we'll talk about some of these more specifically. Personal integrity. I don't just mean yosher, which is, or yoshra in Hebrew today, which means integrity. So if you want to learn Ivrit, write the word yoshra, yud vav shin resh he, integrity, from the word yashar, straight. It means as follows. Don't fool yourself about who you are. When you get dressed up to go someplace, I don't know what you heard in Dating 101, but when you get dressed up to go someplace on a date, and you want to look your prettiest, which is appropriate, don't think of yourself as just as me, I'm this lady with whatever cosmetics and lipstick and what other stuff that I have in myself. This beautiful dress. That's all externals to me. Know ourselves. Know yourself doesn't just mean a negativity. I mentioned Alei Shur before, I'll mention it again. One of the kinyonim to receive the Torah, says the Bryce at the end of Pirkei Avos that we'll read in 2 weeks. 48 ways. It's Hamakir es Mekomo. Know your place. So normally, if somebody says know your place, they're wagging a finger at you saying, hey, don't Be who you're not. But says Rav Wolbe, it could mean that. But it also could mean positively. Know your place. Know what you're able to do. Know your potential. So your self-awareness of yourself doesn't mean that you say, well, I'm not so pretty because I don't have the makeup on. It's that my beauty, my prettiness, is because who I am. And if there's certain parts of me that aren't perfect, which may happen here and there, so I want to make myself more beautiful inside. What? I'd say beautiful inside and outside. Right? That's personal integrity. Know yourself. And how you do so, keeping in touch, we'll talk about that soon. And then we deal with values clarifications. We're not just talking about what you hear from others, but we're talking about clarifications, what you understand yourself. Again, we'll be more specific in a few minutes. Know what's right and wrong. Because there's all sorts of things that you have to deal with that I never thought about in my life when I was your age, that I had to deal with it. Wasn't the subject matter. Gender issues, right? It's hard to imagine that nobody in this room has no issues with people in their family or people they know these days. I'm not talking about individuals, how I react or interact with individuals. That's a separate question. Somebody has a question about that. That's a private conversation that has many aspects to it. I'm talking about the values that are involved in it. It's a world that people are very confused about. In 2002, which wasn't so long ago, you were all born by then, right? But you don't remember the news. The United States government, Congress, passed something called the Sanctity of Family Act. The Sanctity of Family Act is something that everybody in this room can identify with 1,000%. You have mothers and you have fathers and you have children. And the mothers are ladies and the fathers are men. And the children are boys and girls. And that wasn't a surprise, whatever years ago to me when I was, however I was. And it wasn't even anything to think about when I was your age, because who would have thought differently? Who needed to be reminded that A and B are letters of the alphabet and 1 + 1 is 2? It's obvious. Why do you say something that is not obvious? But it's not obvious. And some of the people in this room, undoubtedly, have questions about why it's so, why if two people love each other, etc., etc., etc. Again, I'm not talking about how I interact with other people who I know have such issues. That's not my conversation here. But clarifying the values for myself. How can I learn? How can I understand? How can I know that I'm not just being opposed to something because it's wrong? How can I best understand why it's wrong? Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach. What does God want us to know? Herat HaSeichel. Not just Herat HaTorah. Herat HaTorah tells us it's Aser. Tells us it's To'eva. All sorts of things that are bad news. It also tells me how much I'm able to know when I don't agree with someone and decide, as we'll see in a moment, do I talk up or do I not talk up when somebody says something preposterous, Aser against the Torah, Yehorig Val Yavor, etc., etc., etc. Never talk up when you don't know what you're talking about. Never talk up when you don't know what you're talking about. Because when you talk up, when you don't know what you're talking about, somebody who might know or thinks they know what they're talking about, but since you don't know if they know either, then they're going to refute you. And what happens, ladies? You keep on arguing. In Hebrew, there's a word, lichaper. You know what lichaper means? What does lachpor mean? Chofer? Lichaper is to dig yourself deeper. Get it? Think sometimes you're having an argument, chas v'shalom, with your parents, and your parents are right, and you know it, but you don't want to give in. Or maybe it works the reverse. They know you're right, they don't want to give in. And you keep on arguing, you say things that are stupider every second. Oh, know what I'm talking about? I imagine so. So, beseder, that's what you do in your family, so your parents love you, you love your parents, and we all get over it. Although you should try to avoid that, obviously. But you're dealing with somebody else. Okay? So your foolishness and your ignorance only harms the cause that you want to support. Maybe it's even a chilul Hashem. To be silent, I can't be silent in all situations. I have to do my best to know. Moral issues. Okay? In England, just read today, the following. There's a person who had a terrible accident, has been in a vegetative state for 16 years. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Terrible suffering for the family, etc. He breathes on his own. Doesn't communicate, maybe. But he doesn't communicate. He's a vegetable. Shem Yerachim, terrible situation. Breathes on his own. So how does he live? He has a feeding tube. But he lives, he breathes on his own. He's not on a machine. Okay? I'm not judging people why they want to do it. Do you cut them off or you not cut them off when they're breathing? What's halacha say? What does the Torah do? How's the Torah value life? Or in America Day that you go back to, all sorts of situations about abortions. Okay? Do you know the halacha? It's correct to say abortions are usher, but then you don't know the halacha. They don't have a conversation with anybody until you understand things. Learn. For each of us, that which you have to focus on learning will vary upon our circumstances, places that we find ourselves. We can't learn everything in one day. And at the same time, I have to increase my own religious standing. I can't tell everybody else what to do. I can't tell everybody else what to do. If myself, I'm hypocritical. It's an issue. It's an issue. Those of us who are teachers really have to be careful, right? Because we're aware of our own imperfections. Tell everybody else how to be perfect. We know we're not perfect. Lo pashut. In increasing knowledge. About what do I have to increase knowledge? Let's be more specific. First, you need authoritative context. Some that you have here. Maybe you have people from high school, your community, the Rabbanim that you have. You've been exposed to many, many people so far in your life, Baruch Hashem, and you'll be exposed to many, many wonderful people. Knowledge of people in your life so far. Bezrat Hashem, you'll forge new connections with other wonderful, knowledgeable people. You all have preferences. You're more comfortable talking to this one than to that one. You think this one understands you better. You think this one doesn't understand you better. This one's more patient to hear you out. This one's less patient. This one gives you clear-cut answers, and this one gives you not. And depending on who you are, you will prefer one or the other. And you like talking to the lady teacher more than to the man teacher, or reverse. There's people to choose from. And therefore the Mishnah says, Aseh l'charav. And I underline the word authoritative because I want to distinguish between that and knei l'chachaver. All the wonderful people who are your peers, who you love and cherish very much, as you should love and cherish very much. But they're not authoritative, ladies. Okay? Listen to me. Okay? As nice as you are, and as wonderful as you are, and as wonderful you're going to be at different stages in your life, very few people in your stage of life can rise above the personal conflicts and growth that you are zocheh to experience at that time and give true advice to someone else. Even if you mean the best, it's hard to keep out your personal issues from meaning the best. And then chas v'shalom, there's an issue of lifnei iver lo siteh nichshel. When you're going out and you want to talk to your friends about dating, etc., 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 they're also going out, or they just got married. Or they're happily married, Baruch Hashem, so they want you to be happily married, so they don't care that you have your own issues. So they'll tell you, it's okay, go ahead, get married. They think you'll be marrying better than them, so they said, don't get married. People have their own negios. They have their own personal biases. Everybody does. As you get on with life, you become a little bit more removed, so you have a little bit of a better chance, or a lot better chance to have that. You have experience as time goes on. You deal with things and you learn hopefully from your successes, and you will also learn from the errors that you make along. That's the difference between authoritative, aseh l'charav, and your friends who give you chizuk, who are there for you, who you can have conversations with that you cannot have with other people, okay? Or your rabbanim, the adults, teachers, etc., etc. Know that. Because in order to make yourself better, okay, we don't live alone. Man's not an island. The person doesn't live by themselves. They need some type of a support group, but there's different types of support group. There's emotional support group and there's knowledgeable support group. Not everyone who gives us knowledgeable support group can give us emotional support group. A person can go and have a very tremendous shaila that only the Gadol Ador is able to answer. They go to Rabbi Chaim and they get an answer. Torah's emes. But they need emotional support. They might not feel the emotional support for Rabbi Chaim. Their Zochar Torah is their emotional support, but if not, they need emotional support. Or they need emotional support, but they have to know to do what's right. The difference between authoritative, aseh l'charav, and kanei l'chachaver. And keeping that knowledge isn't just intellectual knowledge, because we saw that we're told by the Maram Shik that the happiness that you have from your knowledge is different than the happiness you have from unknowing, semi-ignorant, following which you don't understand. And that's the next part of being inspired. Since we said earlier that the focus of what we're talking about today is you, not the outside, since that's what we said, so I have to focus on myself. I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of myself beguf of a nefesh. And benefesh does not only mean that I daven longer, I take kabbalas for myself to do things better. That's certainly part of it. But part of it is the inspiration and the motivation that comes. Because sometimes it's hard to do things. All of us know that. All of us know that. It's not just hard for you to do things. Sometimes it's hard for other people to do, even for great people to do things. They all have their challenges because the greatest of people have bechira chavshis. If they have bechira chavshis, that means that there are things that challenge them. And somebody will give you a speech. What's their madrega, and you don't know what their madrega is. It doesn't matter. They still, if you know what Rav Dessler says by Nekudas HaBechira, they still have the challenge. And therefore, a person needs that inspiration. What do we tell you now? At the end of ER, when the year of Machal is coming to an end, and hopefully you've found inspiration up until now. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, do your best to look for some emergency room first aid treatment with the people whom you trust to get that inspiration before you leave. Because it'd be very sad if you don't have it. It's not to blame you. But if it's not there, it's missing, for whatever the reason. But those of us who are inspired, how do you keep that inspiration? What are you supposed to do? I have a suggestion to make for you. Not today, not tomorrow, but a day or two before you leave. Or if you're on a plane by yourself, if you're with all your friends crying and, making the walkway of the plane impassable because it's going to flood, all right? That's not the time to do it. But some time for yourself. Take a piece of paper, regular piece of notebook-sized paper, not on your iPad. You all have pens and pencils still? You know how to write? Sit down for a while, on no more than 2 sides of the paper. Write what's really important to you. What inspires you? What part of Torah? Let's talk about the issue of Machal. What classes inspired you? What teachers inspired you? What friends inspired you? What events inspired you? What chesed that you did inspired you? And for some of you, you will have 1,000,000 things to write, and some of you might only have 3. But find out what inspires you. And write it down. Then you might come up with 7 pages, I hope. Then write it again to make it 4 pages. And then write it again to distill it to get to the point to make it 1 page or 2 sides at the most. And say, this says what I want to say. And then take that piece of paper, fold it in half, and then fold it again until it's in quarters. And take it in the siddur that you use, that you daven from, and put it by Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. And when there's 1 day of Rosh Chodesh, you'll read it, and some months there'll be 2 days you get to read it twice. Remind yourself of what inspires you. And then if you see that you're forgetting, because our memory is fleeting, Am Yisrael were Mekabel Torah, Bekolosu v'Vrokim at Har Sinai, and then they had the Egel Azov not so long afterwards. So memory is fleeting. Remind ourselves what to do. If a certain class was inspirational, take your notes and every day read from it 5 minutes. Remind yourself, put your back from that inspiration. Certain events were inspirational. Remind yourself what it was like and know how you felt at that moment and what motivation that you had. Because the world that you're living in now is a real world. It's not a false world. So you become the point. Because the more that you have that inspiration, the more you're going to do things. Okay? What have you learned? Learn from your past experiences. And by the way, it doesn't just mean in Michala. Okay? Hopefully we've all had wonderful experiences before you came to Michala, and people who inspired you before. So you need clarification. Some of the things we're going to talk about is what I encourage you to have your personal clarification about. I'm not going to start talking about boys and girls, etc., etc. It's true to talk about things in general. It's appropriate to do so, but I imagine you've heard that already. So I'm not going to talk about today. But you have to know where you're holding. You have to know where you're holding. And not just to put a show on the outside or to reject things, but to understand things based on what the Torah requires from you and based on who you are. The two things are not in conflict. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us as people. So they're not in conflict. Not all of us are going to be the same or should be the same. Kishem shein partzufeim domain, just like we look differently. Kach ein deoseim shavot. So we think differently. The Torah speaks to each and every one of us. Okay? From boys and from girls, individuals and groups, right? Figure it out. Okay? Of course, when you date, okay? So you shouldn't have to find nice people. How do I interrelate with non-religious people? Many people here certainly have non-religious family members. Or I go to school. And wherever I'm in school, I'll find people who are not necessarily religious. Okay? Boys and girls. Okay? A boy wants to learn about Judaism. Nice boy. Nice boy. Do I decide to be makar of him or do I refer him to somebody else? I have to think about it. I have an answer. Somebody wants to ask me a question. Another time they can ask me. What about non-Jewish people? The Torah forbids teaching Torah to non-Jewish people. But if you go to Queens, for example, and you're taking a chemistry lab, and they put you with all sorts of people, as has happened before, some nice sanua Muslim girl might want to be your lab partner. And people choose that. And people choose that. They don't talk politics. They don't talk about Israel. They don't think that the person's going to throw acid in their face, right? We'll get there soon. We'll get there soon. Why not? Why not? You dress sanua? She dresses sanua. You don't need to wear, don't imitate her dress. Maybe that's more comfortable. Because maybe she also doesn't want to expose herself, not just her body, just herself in an appropriate way. Okay? You go to a place where the world is acceptable. When I was in college, it wasn't an issue. We didn't have to shake hands with everybody that you met. You have to shake hands. Okay? Issues of Nagiyah. What are you supposed to do? Okay? Certainly also to extend a hand. What do you do when somebody else extends their hand to you? Some people are smart. They carry notebooks and books with them all the time. So what can they do? They can't drop the books on the floor, right? Sometimes it becomes uncomfortable. What are you supposed to do in different situations? In work situations? And I say, well, this time I better give in, but I don't want to give in other times. But people expect you to shake hands. What are you supposed to do the next time? I became religious yesterday. Or in a situation where you're with other religious people, but their standards aren't yours. Let's assume they're lower standards. They're nice Shomer Shabbos people. Don't have to judge them. But they behave in a way that you don't behave. You have to defend yourself. A rough situation. Or if you're in a situation where people might be perceived as being firmer than you, don't cause them the same problems as people who are less firm than you could cause you. You're not only the victim, ladies. We also can be the perpetrator as well. Okay? And what about people who are just touchy people all the time? Nice touchy people. How do you handle it? Can't give advice to everybody because these aren't Rishus HaRabim things. But we can tell you about is when you go to the outside world. It's a difficult world. Besides the yeshiva, I went to college too. But I don't remember anti-Semitism my whole life. I don't remember too much stuff of anti-Semitism. Very little. Very little. Now you go to campus, you deal with BDS people, if you don't know what that is. Okay? Even those of you who aren't Zionim, or big Zionim, you have to become a Zioni these days. Because when people attack Israel, they're attacking the Jewish people. And even though I can perhaps distinguish between Israel and the Jewish people, goyim or goyim, it's just an easy excuse. So I have to know things to defend things. And when they said they're killing all the Arab children, which is sheker v'chazal, I have to know things. There's certain sites that talk about them. There's honest reporting, and there's things to read. There's things you can do. And there's real anti-Semitism. Okay, in some American campuses, which most of you don't go to, it's not such an issue, but Queens has issues. English ladies, the campuses that English ladies go to, huh? Right? It's rough stuff there. Rough stuff there. You have teachers in middle class who talk against Israel, and people start staring at you. What do you do when people stare at you? Okay? You can read the stuff here. But I have to think about it. Okay? So I can empower myself with knowledge to know what I'm supposed to be doing. Take different courses. You study literature courses, ladies. Good literature conveys ideals and value. Good literature conveys ideals and values. The author, not talking about junk stuff, the author wants to convey an idea, and he gives you a hero, a heroine, and a villain. And the hero holds those values, and the villain goes against them. And if it's a good writer, and Kal v'chomer, if you go to a movie and you're one of the people who cried, everything's sad in a movie, okay? Maybe at this point you'll get over going to movies, but whatever. And you really identify with the victim. What are you identifying with? Are you identifying with issues of adultery? Issues of avodah zarah? Issues that the Torah calls to'eva, the Torah rejects? So I have to think what's there. I can't necessarily escape what they make me read in school, but I certainly can be an independent thinker to understand what it teaches me, and not all the time do I know. And this goes to philosophy as well below it. I don't know, that's why I need authoritative teachers to ask. And people send articles. This is what they read. What do you think about it? People ask. And if they send an article, then I read it. Maybe I know the article. Maybe I know the author is already. I give my opinion. Sometimes it might be fine. It might be innocuous. It might be beseder. Sometimes it could be wonderful. Other times it could be super trash. But it's written so well you don't identify it as super trash. So you have to know it's there. Because you have to build that intellectual mechitza to know that I can read it and I keep it outside of me. Okay? Comparative religion, if you have to take such a class, which is also to take, but if you have to take such a class, comparative religion means, what does Judaism say about this? What does Christianity say about this? What does Buddhism say about this? And just remember, whether or not, let's start better, even though Islam is not avodah zarah for a goy, and Christianity is a machlokes Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam, if it's avodah zarah for a goy, all of them for a Jew are avodah zarah. Because Torah's requirements for my beliefs are not the same with the Torah requirements for non-Jews' belief. Okay? Oh, okay. Bible criticism, and you know what TNT is on the fourth line? The New Testament, right? TNT. This week's Haftorah. Hashem says he'll give us Bris Chadasha, says Yirmiyahu HaNavi. No stuff, be aware. But that's the easy stuff. Okay? You have to take some art class, and you're not an art major. If you want to be an art major, you need to discuss with somebody if it's mutter or not and how to get through it. In some ways it's mutter. Okay? There's news. It's churches. And then they tell you about how they worship in the churches. It says it's mutter to do, just like it's also to read the New Testament. If you want to be the Ramban, and you're forced to have a disputation with Pablo Cristiani in the year 1268, and you're defending Judaism, then you have to know the New Testament in and out. And the Ramban did it. Look in Kisvei Ramban, you read that there are transcripts. And the Ramban knew the New Testament better than the Meshumad Pablo Cristiani, the Yimach Shemo. Maybe some of us will be in areas of kiruv where it's necessary to do. But for most of us, it's irrelevant. So we don't belong there. Psychology. You want to study psychology, philosophy, and therapy. Therapeutic methods, in general, are fine, in general. But there's a philosophy of man. Are you more than just impulses? Are you more than just the chemistry within your brain? Do you have a neshama? Some will say we don't have a neshama, because everything that's wrong with me is a chemical imbalance. I have to understand what they're telling me. If I don't understand, then I need this clarification with people who are my authoritative, knowledgeable figures who can help me to understand it. Physics, okay? Everything is cause and effect. The Big Bang. Although now they just said the universe is 1 billion years younger than they thought it was. So, in your notebooks, change it, right? Instead of 7 billion years, it's 6 billion years. I didn't remember. But 1 billion years younger because some of their mathematics didn't work out. And what do you do in a class if the teacher uses foul language or they have an inappropriate discussion as we write here? Do you stay in the class? Do you walk out? Are there red lines that we have that we don't violate? Are there red lines that we have that we don't violate because of who we are? Not because the teacher is a disgusting person. And of course, we're not talking about anybody who wants to behave with us personally in an appropriate way. Okay? Go to the police. But I want to be in the same room with these people. Probably not. What do? I have to think about things in advance. I can't decide on the spot, because if I decide on the spot, I'll never make the right decision. I'll be Machal, I'll be Machal, I'm going to fail the class. And there's issues. You need people to talk to, ladies. If you haven't developed those relationships yet, do so. Talking with your friends about what you're supposed to do, as much as they can give you support, and be sorry for you and be empathetic for you because maybe they're going through the same thing, but davka because maybe they're going through the same thing, they can be of little help with you. Oh, we lost it. How to go to the back one? 1 second. The more that I see myself as representing Hashem's Torah, and knowing that people will say, look at that person. Look at him, look at her. They're Orthodox. Must be a pretty good way to live. Or chas v'shalom the other way. Because when there's Chil Hashem, says the Rambam, it's a Mishnah in the Masechet Shuma, when there's Chil Hashem, says the Rambam, even Yom Kippur is not mechaper. So I have to see myself. Is it unfair? I don't know. Hashem says, "Nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael." So I guess it's not unfair more than so Hashem HaShabbos L'Kadsho. Is it hard? Absolutely, because I want to be one of everybody else. I don't always like to be different. I don't always want to stand out. I don't always want to call attention to myself. And therefore the question is, how can I be in Mekadesh Hashem without calling attention to myself? And the tznius I want to talk about here is not how you dress. It's not a female tznius. It's a Jewish person tznius. Hatznei aleches im Hashem Elokecha. No God is there. And Rabbi Yaakov tells us in the beginning of Perek Beis of Pirkei Avos, and with this we'll stop, what's this nature of how I'm supposed to think about the world that I live in? It's longer than I'm synopsizing here. But so, the Medrash says that when Avram Avinu went to do Bris Milah, he conferred with Mamre, Eshkol, his friends, non-Jewish friends, right? His other B'nai Noach friends. Strange. If he conferred with them, what they would have said, no, he wouldn't have done Bris Milah, says Rabbi Yaakov. So what was the point of the conference? And as long as he's conferring, we do not find that when Avram Avinu went to do the Akedah, he conferred with them. Rav Kamenetsky, Zecher Tzadik Livrocho, he wants to introduce us to some critical thinking, because that's what happens inside us. That's how we began today, and that's how we're going to conclude right now. The question that Avram Avinu asked his friends was whether he should make the Bris Milah more of a public event or more of a private event. Since Bris Milah could be perceived as mutilation of the body, maybe it's better to be private. If people would respect it as an act of sacrifice, if you will, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then that can make the Kiddush Hashem. Is the Kiddush Hashem going to be greater if he does Bris Milah privately, or it's more of a public event. And when they told him it could be a public event, so he knew that it wouldn't be a chilul Hashem to do it privately. Meaning what? Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, not me. Says the Gadol Ador Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, there's sometimes when we do mitzvos, that through the very way that I do the mitzvah, it could be a chilul Hashem, it could be a kiddush Hashem. I have to think the proper method to do it, not whether I do the mitzvah or not. Not when everyone's speaking Lashon Hara and I say, excuse me, I can't talk like that. I walk away and they'll say, oh, that's a chilul Hashem, you separate from yourself. Chas v'shalom. So let's just talk Lashon Hara. Or everybody talks certain stories, you say, I can't be with you, I'm sorry. But there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. There's a way to take a mitzvah and to pervert it and to be a novel b'shus HaTorah, as the Ramban says in Parshas Kedoshim. So when there was that opportunity to the mitzvah the best way it was, so Avram Avinu conferred with others whom he trusted, whom he thought as being authoritative. When it came to Akedesh Yitzchak, to kill Yitzchak, when Avram Avinu taught everybody the sanctity of life, and it would certainly be known if he killed him, so there was no way to ask a question. It was a lose-lose situation. There's no way to do it. There was nothing to confer about. It was a way that seemed self-defeating for Avram Avinu, and says the Medrash, it was. That the Sultan put all sorts of barriers. He made it like crossing a desert, made it impossible to do, except his determination. God said so, he did it. But then there wasn't any choice to do it a better way and not better way, because there was no better way. Okay? The mitzvah itself that he was told, he would take the consequences. There was nothing to talk about. He didn't talk to anybody. So there's sometimes when there's no conversation. But other times there are. Other times, not just in your appearance and your behavior as a Kiddush Hashem, in the very way that you have the mitzvahs. And when I do the mitzvahs in a way that are Kiddush Hashem, it's not just that God becomes sanctified because He's holy as it is without you and without me. It's I imbue the Kedusha within me. When I imbue the Kedusha within me, my neshama builds its natural barriers. My intellect has its natural sense. I'm able to understand what is threatening and what I can survive with. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a neshama kedosha, the kind of neshama shenasata bi tahorahi. Our job is to emphasize the tahara, let it come and permeate our very being, and then when I have challenges, because we all have challenges, I can ask for the siyata d'shmaya to meet them and to be successful. Have a nice day, ladies. Who are you?
My father's already lost him, and Aiden lost him.
Oh, you're awesome. Oh, yeah. I know your father. I know your father. I know your mother. I know your father. Your mother was a Machal.
My mother was not.
No, Machal? Then different wasserman? Or they're different wasserman?
Different
Different wasserman. Okay. Your cousin.
My mother went to Mars.
Huh? Good. Good for her. Okay, so tell me, yeah. I'm
So
listening.
I wanted to bring you one. I wanted to know where I could bring one.
You can leave it in the